a long day today, so just bear with me. Okay, so I was going to do this live reading like at 3, but I did not have time. I had other things that I was doing, so hopefully we can do this and get it done. Right, Batman? Batman. Do you want to say hi to everybody? Do you want to say hi? Hi? Come here. Come here. Okay, he doesn't want to. Okay, so we are actually going to be reading chapter 29. So, I hope you all can hear me. So, I'll be reading chapter 29 from my book, Awakened Evil. And I will be doing a hardback really soon. KDP, my publisher, I just found out that they're doing hardbacks. And I am like so excited. I can't wait until I get the hardback of like this one in my hands, which the hardback is over there, which you can't see it. It's over there and I really love it, but I think I'm going to change the cover just a little bit. So, okay, this chapter is going to be a little long. And it's a chapter that I did have fun to write, but I'm going to be a little shy reading it because, of course, Olivia is dating somebody and they going on a date. I mean, I could skip this chapter, but I'm pretty sure you guys want to hear it. So, okay, so wait, I need water. Hold on, I need water. Okay, whoa. All right, I'm gonna open this real quick. So yeah, I wasn't prepared. I had a long day. Open. Okay, let me take a drink. Okay. Chapter 29. Olivia turned over on her back and looked at the clock. 1:20 a.m. It'd been almost a whole week, and she still hadn't gotten any sleep because of the weird sounds and seeing that blonde teen boy. She kicked the covers off and sat up in bed. Darkness coated all the corners. Only a little moonlight traced the end of the bed in the middle of the room. The temperature in the room grew to a cold chill like freezing below. Maybe Dad left the windows open. It had been hot for the past couple of days. Never once did I like the heat in August. She walked across the hallway and stopped in front of Dad's door. The hallway wasn't so gloomy, but the table with a single lamp and a phone jack with 2 baskets underneath full of magazines. The other one had air fresheners and candles. Beside it was a night light. She peeked in and found him sound asleep. The thin blanket and sheets hung to the floor with his toes exposed. Dad never liked heavy blankets on him at night, not even during the day. If too many layers, then that meant too much heat. He don't even have a heating blanket. The window was open halfway. A gentle, cool breeze slipped past the curtains. Once headed back to her room, she climbed into bed and clutched onto the pillow. Morning light peered through the window towards her face, causing her to squint both eyes. The warm feeling of it was pleasing. Pulling the blanket over her head, wanting to stay under the covers, she heard a knock at the door. "Olivia, it's time to get up." "Okay, thank you." She saw her dad walk back into his room and close the door. 5 more minutes of sleep would have been nice. A picture of Grandpa and her 10 years ago sat next to her lamp. Morning, Grandpa. She climbed out of bed and headed towards the bathroom. At the end of the hallway, the morning light gleamed across the wall, and the top of the staircase. Once she finished in the shower, she got dressed and brushed her teeth, then headed downstairs to the kitchen. After breakfast with Dad, he dropped her off at school and headed to work. As she walked down the sidewalk towards the building, somebody with black hair stepped out from behind the tree. Olivia. She stopped and saw Tyler. Hi. He walked over and stopped in front of her. Can a guy walk you to class? Her face warmed and she looked down, a hand to her cheek. You look cute. She looked up at him and smiled. Thank you. He stood to the side and held an arm out. Ladies first. She smiled more and walked with him, taking her time. How's class? First thought that came to mind was the teenager. She didn't want to tell him that. It's going great. How about you? He opened the door and let her in first. It's going fine. After he walked her to class, he touched her arm and smiled. See you later, Olivia. You too, Tyler. He winked at her and turned the corner. He's so cute. Batman. Olivia walked into the classroom and sat down. After class started and waited for the young teenager to appear. She needed to know why he went to Inga's house and what the reason was for. I wonder how Gina did it. Did she ever wait for a ghost to show up or what? But then she thought about Tyler and everything changed. She loved his dark black hair and brown eyes, his strong jaw and tight abs. She tried to focus on what she was writing and to use the tools. But he was still there in the back of her mind. She needed to get her work done like everybody else. Batman. Within a brief second, Olivia felt a sad coldness, just like before when she saw the teenager fill the air. It was depressing and upsetting. Nobody should feel that way, not even the dead. She looked over at the door just as the last student left and waited for the teenager to show himself, to give her more answers. A few seconds went by, and nothing happened. In between class breaks, Olivia caught up with Loretta and Skeeter, glad to see them. Of course, like always, Loretta always wore the brightest colors. She would be noticed in a full crowd of people, that's for sure. Skeeter played his DS like he did at home all the time. Olivia, I'm so glad we're accepted in the same college. Me too. Did you beat it yet, Skeeter? Almost. Olivia hugged them and headed to her next class. Batman obviously likes to get attention. Okay. After the day ended, she sat outside on a bench, and a black Chevy truck caught her attention. She squeezed her eyes to see who was in the driver's seat. The boy opened and stepped out. His dark black hair gave it away. It was Tyler. He closed the door and walked towards her. The gap between them grew smaller. Oh God, he's walking towards me. Breathe, Olivia, just breathe. He wore a red shirt that buttoned up in the front. His sleeves rolled back above his elbows. Cute boot-cut denim jeans. He took his sunglasses off and stopped in front of her. She gazed into his brown eyes. Oh my, his beautiful brown eyes. He smiled, took a step closer, and caressed her jawline. Once he touched her cheek, she got that good feeling again, just like before. Olivia, yes, Tyler. Do you like Italian food? She smiled. Yes. Would you like to join me for dinner tonight? Yes, I would love to. He folded an arm over her back, and the both of them walked across the street to his truck. He glided his hand across her shoulder blades. Olivia couldn't have erased the smile from her face if she tried. They stopped in front of the passenger door. He grabbed the handle and opened it. After Olivia got in, she placed the bag by her feet, then closed the door. She messaged her dad a quick text to let him know she had a ride home from a friend in class and that she would be home later. Tyler climbed into the driver's seat and closed the door. He smiled, catching Olivia's attention. Don't forget to buckle your seatbelt on. Olivia looked down. It wasn't fastened. Oh, I'm sorry. She reached over and buckled it in. The shampoo in his dark hair and the rich cologne on him smelled so good. She wanted to feel that all day. It was so breathtaking. After he buckled his seatbelt, the engine roared alive. Tyler gripped the steering wheel and waited for the remaining cars to drive by. He drove down the road away from the college. Tyler pressed a button on the steering wheel. A few seconds passed by until the quietness filled with the sounds of jazz music. She smiled and looked over at him. You like jazz music, Olivia? Yes, I do. The busy streets and loud traffic never seemed to bother Olivia. She must be getting used to the busy streets of Winnipeg. It's only been 4 weeks now. He parked the truck in front of a restaurant, pulled the key off, and smiled at her. She returned a smile and unbuckled the seatbelt. After he opened the door and helped her out, he slid her hair over her shoulder and closed the door. The both of them went across the street. The breeze guided Tyler's rich cologne past her nose. Her body trembled a little, and she squeezed his hand. He squeezed back and smiled. They entered the front glass door with a sign of the restaurant's name on it, the Italian Spot. With Tyler by her side, she noticed the low lighting and the pale colors across the walls. People talked and laughed with each other. The smell of spices and fresh bread lingered in the air. She sniffed the lovely scents. Her eyes closed for a brief second. When they opened, Tyler was looking at her, a grin plastered across his face. When she looked up and gazed into his eyes, the waitress tottered over and stopped by the front desk. Good evening. Do you have a reservation? Tyler stepped forward. Yes, we do. Tyler Geiger. The waitress checked the list, then grabbed 2 menus. Okay, you can follow me, please. As they followed the waitress, Olivia scanned the room and realized she was the only one wearing jeans and a shirt. Her face and cheeks flushed. She kept her head down. What's wrong, Olivia? You look upset. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Well, everybody else is wearing nice clothes, and I'm wearing jeans and a shirt. He clutched her closer to his hip and placed a hand on the middle of her back. Don't worry about what everybody else is wearing. I think you look stunning and beautiful. She felt her cheeks flush. The waitress showed them to the back of the restaurant, where a full set of dark wood stairs were going to another level. Where are we going? What does he have planned? Once they were at the top of the stairs, Olivia noticed the black tile floor and the white walls with a touch of soft yellow. The waitress slid the light wooden door open and stood to the side so Olivia and Tyler could enter. Olivia smiled from ear to ear at the view as the waitress set the menus on the table and left. The doors closed. A single table sat outside with lights all around. The view of the city was perfect in Olivia's eyes. She was now all alone with Tyler. Smoothing jazz tunes filled the air. Light lingered in the dark. It took on many hues of colors, expanding throughout the sunset. Tyler slid her hair back to expose her neck. The breeze traced her face. The warm sun glided down. Her skin tingled as his fingertips trailed down her forearms to her hands. "What do you think?" he whispered to her ear. His sweet breath sent shivers throughout her body. She turned her head and felt his lips brush across her cheekbone. "I love it." "Good, let's sit, shall we?" Tyler pulled the chair out for Olivia and helped her in, and sat down across the table. She felt entirely entertained just by staring at him. He was so jaw-dropping and perfect in her eyes, it was hard to look away. A waitress had wavy red hair pulled back in a ponytail. She stopped by their table. Okay, I have 2 more pages. My throat is starting to burn from reading. Whew. Okay. This caught Olivia's attention. She didn't even hear the doors open. She'd been lost in Tyler's eyes. On the other hand, why didn't the waitress wait 5 more minutes? They just got here. Good evening. Can I start you with an appetizer?" "Yes, please," he said, then looked at Olivia. "Do you like breadsticks?" "Yes, I do." "We'll have breadsticks." "And do you want sauces with them?" the waitress asked. He again looked at Olivia. "Yes." The waitress wrote it down. Olivia picked the menu up and scanned through it. She wasn't trying to find something she liked. She wanted to take a peek at Tyler instead. There he sat, leaned back in his chair, his fingers slid along his chin, looking at the menu. He released a breath and turned the page, then laid his hand on the table next to his wrapped silverware and a white napkin and turned it over. He repeated the motion. Olivia loved his hands already. She watched the way he used them. Once she looked back at him, he grinned at her. Butterflies emerged in her stomach. She showed a half smile and gazed back down at the menu. Scanning through the pastas, she finally picked what she wanted. The waitress came back through the doors with a notepad and stopped beside the table. "Have you both decided what you want?" Tyler stared at Olivia, elbows on the edge of the table. He held his hand out. "Ladies first." Olivia smiled, then scanned the menu. "I think I'll have the chicken pasta." The waitress wrote it down, then looked at Tyler. "And what would you like, sir?" He handed the menu back to the waitress and kept his eyes on Olivia. "I'll have what she's having." The waitress took the menus and slid the doors shut behind her. Olivia picked up the wrapped silverware and cleared her throat. "I can do that for you, Olivia." "What?" Tyler slid the chair back and walked around the table, took the napkin, then knelt beside her. He unfolded the napkin and placed it over her lap, then smoothed it out. He slid his hand down her calves. Tingles ran up her leg, and she sucked a breath in. He bit his bottom lip. His hand stopped to her ankle. She couldn't get a deep swallow. She tried again, still nothing. Her mouth and throat dried. He leaned up and hovered over her. He placed his left side on the armrest behind her elbow. She gazed into his brown eyes. With his other hand, he touched her jawline. Their breaths collided. She gripped the arms of the chair, feeling the pounding in her chest. Once their lips met, her head tilted back as her eyes closed. She moved a hand to the back of his neck. She let herself go, then pressed her lips against his. Blood rushed through her body as a tidal wave, like a tidal wave, and followed the pace of his lips. She smiled and watched a smart view of his face as he caressed her cheek. He sat back down and smiled at her. The door slid open as Olivia peered over her shoulder. It was the redhead waitress. Thank God she just came in. It would have been awkward if she caught me and Tyler kissing. She walked over to the bowl of bread in her hand, and the 2 plates rested on her forearms. I'm so sorry it took so long. Tyler peeked at Olivia and smiled. It's okay. Batman? Olivia smiled back and looked down at her hands on her lap as the waitress put the bowl of breadsticks in the middle of the table, then set the 2 plates of pasta in front of them. The spicy and robust garlic remained in the air. Sauce bubbled. She felt the heat of the steam rise in front of her. She looked down at her tangled fingers and let a breath out. She gripped the fork. Her eyebrows lifted. His eyebrows lifted as if to react to her voice. Why don't you tell me about your childhood and your family? His smile faded as if he heard bad news. He paused and clenched his jaw. Panic rose in his eyes as they left hers. Oh crap, what did I say? Great going, Olivia. Smart move. A sad, lonely, quiet Tyler sat across the table from her. He was in deep thought, as if he was reminded of something. A haunted past or a tragic history. He turned his head and squeezed his eyes shut, as if a dark memory reunited with him. She swallowed hard and pressed her lips together. After taking a drink from the cold water, she looked back at him. For a moment, she hesitated to speak. Are you okay? He lifted his eyes to hers and relaxed. He straightened his posture and picked up the glass. This guy was like a beautiful paradise. His hair, she could run a hand through it. His eyes, staring deep into them and never having the guts to look away. His soft, smooth lips. She would love to kiss him over and over. As handsome as he was, everything about him was just so captivating. Olivia realized what she was doing and looked down at her plate, then took a bite. The spices mixed with the pasta, cheese melted in her mouth. It was so good. She took a couple bites. Dang, that is good. She took a drink of water, then another bite. Olivia looked up and saw Tyler take a bite, keeping his gaze on her. He set his fork down and took a drink. So, he referred to her plate of food, then looked back at her. She smiled. It's good. I like it. I'm glad you like it. Thank you for bringing me here. I really appreciate it, Tyler. I really do appreciate it, Tyler. He showed his perfect white, straight teeth, eyes alight with interest. He tapped his lips with the napkin, then stood up from his chair and stopped by her. He held his hand out and grinned. Will you dance with me, Olivia Bell? She smiled and let him take her hand, then stood. They both stopped by the rail, overseeing the city. He held her body close to his. The feeling sent a warm rush through her body. I wasn't expecting to be this close to this gorgeous guy. It felt good, and I like it. She placed both hands on his shoulders. He moved his head over her ear. You are blushing, Olivia. His hand glided through her hair. His thumb teased her earlobe. Yes, she whispered. And with that, he pulled her in until their lips pressed together. She loved his mouth being on hers. She didn't want it to stop. He moved both of his hands down the middle of her back. They swayed slowly to the smoothing jazz. Their lips parted. It seemed like it was just her and him at that moment and nothing else. She liked that feeling a lot. Tyler brushed his lips across her cheekbone, then lips. Oh my gosh. Seriously. I hate reading romance stuff in front of people. If I ever become famous or become a #1 New York Times bestseller, I hope I don't ever have to read romance in front of people. For real, I don't mind writing it. It's uncomfortable. Oh my lordy. Okay, so that was like a romantic chapter. Oh Lord. Anyways, I hope I don't ever have to read that again. So that chapter, with everything like going on with Olivia, I wanted to like distract her from from seeing the 2 dead boys, and I just needed to distract her a little bit. So I decided, okay, I can't forget about Tyler. So that's when I was like, okay, maybe I can have him go on a date. I don't know if I dragged it for too long or if I did too much setting. I don't know. I probably could have wrote it a lot better, I guess. But I guess the kissing was okay. I mean, I could actually see it happening. So, I don't know what else to say about this chapter, but yeah, I guess it was okay to read it. Right, Batman? I hope the next chapter isn't. Oh, thank God. Okay. Okay, so chapter 30 is from Madison's point of view and Keegan's point of view, I think. Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm really excited for that chapter. So I'll be reading that Friday night, I think. I think. So tomorrow I have to take Batman to get his booster shot. And then Friday I'm cleaning the church. So I'll probably read whenever I'm done and when I get home. Hopefully I'll read by 7. Or maybe hopefully 6 o'clock. I don't know. We'll just see. So, sorry if this reading was too long. It was like almost an hour. Oh my Lord. Sorry about that. But, okay. So, anyways, thank you all so much for reading along with me. And I hope you guys have a great evening. And I will see you guys Friday. So, thank you so much. Bye. Bye, Batman. Say bye.